I was on another tiring day after a long shift in the early hours of the morning, passing through the corridors when a woman called out to me, "Nurse, please come here, I need you." I quickly attended to her. She was complaining of pain, and there I saw in her eyes how much she needed help. I examined her and managed to medicate her to her relief. After medicating the woman, she looked at me with gratitude in her eyes and thanked me with a faint smile on her lips. I smiled back, feeling pleased to be able to help her. The day was just beginning, it was 6 o'clock in the morning and Rose still hadn't arrived to take my place. Taking a deep breath, I began to organize the shifts for that intense early morning. The pile of papers on my desk seemed endless, and each page represented a story of pain, hope and care given during the night. I took off my shoes, tired. I could barely sit down from the pain in my back, but I knew I was close to going home to bed. The smell of fresh coffee hung in the air of the ward, mixed with the scent of cleaning products. It was a familiar environment, as exhausting as it could be. As soon as I heard that familiar voice calling my name, a wave of relief washed over my exhausted body. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders after a long day's work. I took a deep breath, feeling gratitude fill my heart as I stacked up the last of the charts. Finally, I thought to myself, eager to leave the hospital and rest at home. My eyes were heavy with sleep, but I knew I had to stay alert to drive home safely. After saying goodbye to my colleagues and Rose, the nurse who would be replacing me, I had a strong coffee in the hospital cafeteria, hoping that the caffeine would give me the energy I needed for the drive home. Only a few kilometers separated the hospital from my home, but at that moment, every meter felt like a journey. As I walked out of the hospital's main door, I took a deep breath of the fresh night air and silently said goodbye to the building, promising myself a well-deserved rest as soon as I got home. With determination, I got into the car and drove off, leaving behind another hard but rewarding day's work. As soon as I entered the house, I was greeted by my faithful companion, Norman, who immediately came running towards me, meowing loudly as if he was complaining about my absence. I smiled at the sight of him and picked him up, feeling his comforting purr as I made my way to the kitchen to feed him. After making sure Norman was satisfied with his meal, I headed to the bathroom to take an invigorating shower. The hot water relaxed my tired muscles, providing a brief respite after the exhausting day at the hospital. As the water poured over my body, my mind wandered to the responsibilities and challenges I faced as a nurse. I was constantly reminded of the financial investment I had made to graduate, which motivated me to keep working hard to pay off my student debts and build a better future for myself. After a comforting shower, I put on my pajamas and snuggled into bed, ready to get a few precious hours of sleep before returning to work at dawn. Despite my tiredness, I felt grateful for the opportunity to practice my profession and help those in need. With this thought in mind, I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, knowing that I would need to recharge my batteries for another challenging shift ahead. When I woke up to the shrill sound of the alarm, I didn't hesitate to get up, aware that another shift awaited me. I took a quick shower to ward off sleepiness, put on my lab coat with determination and then headed to the hospital, where the unknown of the night promised to bring challenges and unpredictable situations. Rose handed me the medical records and, as usual, I began to catch up on the cases on duty. As I walked through the corridors, everything seemed calm until an unexpected situation arose in the emergency room. A lady was lying on a stretcher, accompanied by a visibly worried young man. He approached me in a hurry and his voice sounded desperate as he told me what had happened. "Nurse, I found this lady lying on the side of the road. I called emergency, but I don't know her," he said, with a distressed expression. My heart squeezed as I realized the urgency of the situation and I immediately went to help. The boy's worried expression immediately alerted me to the seriousness of the situation. I took control of the situation and approached the lady, quickly examining her while the boy recounted what had happened. She was an elderly woman, apparently in a serious condition. Without hesitation, I called in other professionals to help transfer her to a suitable stretcher and we began the first emergency procedures. While we worked frantically to stabilize her, my mind was on alert, trying to figure out what could have caused her collapse. That case would undoubtedly shake up my night. The doctor, Dr. Edgar, soon arrived and started administering the medication to try to wake her up and get information about what had happened. It was crucial to understand whether she had a serious illness or was taking any medication. After all, we were dealing with an unknown patient, and every detail could be crucial to her treatment. When she finally woke up, her condition now seemed more stable. She managed to open her eyes and, seeing her awake, I approached her and introduced myself. I explained that she was safe, that she had been found on the street by a boy who had brought her there. With eyes full of gratitude, she said to me in a low voice, "Thank you very much." It was then that she revealed that this situation had been happening to her for some time, ever since she found out she needed a heart transplant. Dr. Edgar then asks, "Are you already being treated at another hospital?" Amelia, her voice tired, looks into the doctor's eyes and replies, "Doctor, I was, but I couldn't wait any longer for a transplant. I spent my days just taking medication. To get rid of this suffering, I signed a form and discontinued treatment." Dr. Edgar looks at me and says, "Let's do some tests on her and see how this lady is doing." He then asks her name, and Amelia replies, "Amelia, doctor, that's my name." The case of this lady, already 79 years old and in need of a transplant, caught my attention. Then the doctor said to me, "Alice, ask the patient if she has any relatives, so you can tell them." So I went back into the room and asked, "Do you have any relatives so you can tell them you're here?" She replied tearfully, "Nurse, I don't have anyone. I'm a widow, I didn't have any children. It was just me and my husband, may he rest in peace. But life dealt me a blow and he died of cancer." I was stunned. How could that lady, in that state, have no one to support her? So I decided to dedicate myself to helping her. I left Amelia in her room and went to the cafeteria to have a coffee and stay awake, as I knew that this would be a long shift for me. Meanwhile, Dr. Edgar took her for tests to confirm that she needed a transplant. Moments later, we received confirmation that she really needed help. However, the big dilemma arose: how would we find a compatible donor for Amelia? Dr. Edgar started trying to make some contacts to help her, but without much success. The situation made us increasingly anxious, as we knew she needed help as soon as possible. The hours passed and then the day began to dawn, indicating that my shift was over. My body was beginning to feel tired. That's when Rose came in and asked how my shift had been. I told her all about what had happened and asked for her help in looking after Amelia until I returned the next morning. She readily agreed and encouraged me to get some rest. Before I left, I told her to call me if things got complicated. So, I went home, but that lady's case wouldn't leave me. I felt an urgency to help her, but I wasn't sure how I could do it. When I turned on the television, I came across some tragic news. A group of cyclists had been hit by a car and many of them had died, leaving their families distraught. All the injured had been taken to the hospital in the neighboring town. That tragedy touched me even more. I went to bed, but I couldn't think of anything else. Tiredness was already taking hold of me. Once again I was woken up by my alarm clock. I ran anxiously to see Amelia to see if there was any news. I got dressed and went to the hospital. As soon as I arrived, I was updated on the cases from that night, and I saw that Amelia was there. Dr. Edgar then called me to talk. I left Amelia in the room and went after him. He looked at me and said, "Alice, I won't be able to help this lady. I couldn't get the transplant for her, and I wondered what to do now in this situation." With her heart squeezed, Alice absorbed Dr. Edgar's words. A feeling of helplessness came over her, but she knew she couldn't just give up on Amelia. Taking a deep breath, she looked at the doctor and said with determination, "Doctor, I know it's not an easy task, but we can't give up. I'm going to do everything I can to find a solution. If we can't get the transplant here, we'll look elsewhere, ask for help, spread Amelia's story. She deserves a chance to live, and I won't rest until I find a solution for her." Dr. Edgar's gaze was serious when he said those words that echoed like a weight in my chest. This lady has already lived a long time, she has no one for her. If she dies, it will be because fate has willed it, he said resignedly. However, his acceptance didn't resonate with me. I refused to accept the cruel fate that seemed to be in store for Amelia. Disgruntled, my mind began to spin in search of solutions. It was then that a glimmer of hope crossed my mind. I remembered the article about the cyclists who had been killed in that terrible accident. Without hesitation, I picked up the phone and called the other hospital, anxious for any sign of hope. My breath was held as I waited for information about the organ donors among the victims of the accident. When I finally received confirmation that there was a compatible donor, I felt a mixture of relief and hope. I had a chance to make a difference in Amelia's life. With the news in hand, I rushed to share it with Dr. Edgar. His expression quickly changed when I told him about the discovery and the possibility of saving Amelia's life. Without wasting any time, he called the hospital, explaining the urgent situation and the need for a transplant for Amelia. At that moment, even in the face of uncertainty, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, Dr. Edgar and I were determined to fight for Amelia's life, clinging to the hope that fate could be shaped by our actions. I was anxious to be able to break the news to Amelia, but I had no idea what lay ahead. As Dr. Edgar and I prepared for the transplant, the lady's condition changed dramatically. Her condition deteriorated with each passing moment and, when we were called to the emergency room, her heart was already showing signs that it was about to stop. Without wasting any time, I began to revive her with all my might, clinging to the hope that I could save her in time. No matter how hard I tried, my efforts seemed to have no effect. Then the doctor stepped in and took control of the situation. I watched with my heart in my mouth as the doctor operated the defibrillator. After 3 agonizing attempts, Amelia finally reappeared before our eyes. A wave of relief washed over us when her heart began to stabilize again. We celebrated that moment, aware that we still had important news to give to this brave woman who had just fought for her life. She finally woke up, and with a smile on my face, I gave her the long-awaited good news. At dawn, her heart was already on its way, and after all the necessary tests, Amelia was ready for her surgery. The procedure was a success, bringing a happy ending to yet another challenging case. I saw her in post-operative recovery and felt immense joy. When she woke up, her voice still weak, she called out to me, "Alice, I want to thank you for helping me get my life back. I'll be eternally grateful that you didn't give up on me." Those words touched my heart deeply, and I realized that, despite the difficulties and challenges, the hard work and dedication had paid off. I was standing in front of an example of overcoming and gratitude, and that filled me with a sense of fulfillment and happiness. After a few days, Amelia was recovering very well. Her new heart was reacting well, and I was incredibly happy with her progress. When I entered her room, I saw a very well-dressed man, which aroused my curiosity. Amelia then introduced me to the man as her lawyer. She said that she had no words to thank me for everything I had done for her, and so she decided to give me a good portion of her estate. What's more, when she died, she would leave her entire fortune to me. I was shocked. Was that lady rich? I couldn't accept such generosity, but she insisted, and I ended up accepting on one condition, that the other part of the fortune be earmarked for the creation of an NGO to help children and the elderly. I was amazed by the project, and together we signed the document formalizing the agreement. Years later, that lady passed away, not from illness, but from old age. With her departure, the responsibility of fulfilling her wish to help those most in need fell to me. I took on the NGO project with determination and passion, dedicating myself to making a difference in the lives of many people. Today, I look back and see the positive impact we have been able to achieve, thanks to Amelia's generosity and vision. I feel even more fulfilled to be able to do what I love, save lives and make the world a better place for everyone. Alice and Amelia's story teaches us that kindness and compassion can transform lives in unexpected ways. Even in the face of adversity, the act of helping others, without expecting anything in return, can generate surprising results and inspire positive changes in society. The moral of this story is that by reaching out to those in need, we not only make a difference in their lives, but also enrich our own lives with gratitude, fulfillment and purpose.